104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. We're going right now to the man, Sean Deveney. He covers the NBA for the Sporting News. Sean, first, let's talk about that beating last night, the Warriors-Cavs game. Do we take anything away from that long term?
You know, there was certainly a bad taste in the mouth of the Warriors after the Christmas Day game. So I think that they wanted to come out and sort of reset things with the Cavaliers, you know, considering, hey, it had been 4 straight losses there. So that's not something the Warriors wanted to have hanging over their heads heading into what I think most of us assume will be the NBA Finals. You know, we're a long way from that, of course, but, you know, if it plays out the way it looks, you're going to have those two teams, and I don't think the Warriors wanted to go in to a series like that without sort of reasserting themselves in this matchup with the Cavaliers. So, yeah, you know, I think that was certainly a win that they really wanted, and if you watch that game, it was clear that they were not going to be denied.
All right, Sean, the big play, Draymond Green, LeBron James, overly flagrant foul, flop, or both?
You know, probably a little of both, really. I mean, it's, you know, it's always hard to tell anything that involves Draymond, you know, because there's going to be exaggeration on either side. You know, he's certainly, I would say, the most physical defender in the league. You know, certainly among the starters, among the talented players. You know, he's not a guy who comes in and is just a goon necessarily, but he's going to be physical, and so yeah, you know, and you get a play like that, it's probably a little bit of both with those two guys.
So were you shocked? Like Richard Jefferson's the only guy who really comes to LeBron's aid?
Yeah, you know, I think that the way that game started and the way that game sort of unfolded, that the Cavaliers had put their cards down pretty quickly and were ready to get out of there, and it seemed to be a team-wide thing. But still, you know, I mean, this is a rivalry. I mean, these are teams that have played 13 playoff games against each other in the last 2 years, and had really just a tremendously hard-fought series last year. So you would think that there's enough bad blood where you would see something like that. You know, you think of the Lakers Celtics of the 80s. I mean, if one of those guys went down, doesn't matter what the score is, you know, you're going to get a skirmish from the other guys. So yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise to me for sure.
Sean Deveney of the Sporting News with us right now on 104.5 The Team. So, Sean, now in New York, the soap opera that is the Knicks, Melo now we're hearing is going to meet with Phil at some point. Is Carmelo Anthony about to leave the New York Knicks?
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's certainly something that he's got to start thinking about, you know, because they're going to go through another season here with him at I believe he's 33, and you know he's at the end of the line. You know, I mean he's not going to be a good NBA player when you look at his style of play, because he only does one thing really well, and that's score. Then you know he's got to be able to take advantage of his talents while he still can. And you know he's not a guy who's going to be able to make a transition like a Tim Duncan or a Kevin Garnett or something and hang around for another 5, 6, 7 years and still find ways to contribute, because he only does one thing, and that you can see in the numbers is already fading. So he's got to figure out where they're going, what their realistic prospects are for this summer and beyond that. He knows Chris Paul really well. He'd love to get Chris Paul in New York, of course, but if he's got a sense and Chris Paul has told him, look, I'm staying with the Clippers, then he's got to start thinking, okay, what can I really get done here? Is there a place I can go where, perhaps I can rescue the rest of my career here and at least have a chance to play for some championships?
Who's most likely to be a New York Knick next season, at least a part of the franchise? Is it Phil Jackson, Derrick Rose, Carmelo Anthony?
I mean, of the three, I would say Anthony, just because he's got the big contract and he's even if they decide they want to trade him, it's not going to be an easy prospect to do that. I think Rose, given what's happened, I would be really, really surprised they would have to be very, very desperate. And of course, they're close to desperate if they're not there yet. But I would think they'd have to be very desperate to bring Rose back, given what's happened this year. And I would also be surprised if this year continues as the way it's gone, as the way it's been going recently, if Jackson doesn't finally throw in the towel and say he just admit that he can't do it, because it doesn't seem like things are getting better. He came in promising patience. He gave up on that pretty quickly, and now you're not getting any results. So you might see Jackson gone as well. I think of those three, I would probably say Carmelo Anthony.
And it's funny, too, Sean Deveney of the Sporting News with us right here on 104.5 The Team. Just when I'm about to give up on Melo, I see him kind of play the big brother role with Ron Baker, or should I call him Ron Burgundy?
I think, to be fair to Carmelo, what's happened is his body is giving out. He can't. He's getting older, and it's like I said, it's hard for him to do what he's. But when you look at the way he's approached his role, when you look at the way he's approached, what he's supposed to be doing with the Knicks. If it weren't for the physical part of it, he's been fine. He hasn't gotten in any trouble. He's tried to be a leader. They haven't given him anything to work with. The times he's complained, he's been very limited in his complaints. He's been a model citizen there, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. But consider what they've given him and how little problem he's actually caused. I would say that you've got to actually be pleased with sort of how he's handled his role with this team over the last few years.
It seems like now we're on a collision course. Warriors-Cavaliers, round 3 in the NBA Finals. But do you see another franchise out there, whether it be in the Western Conference or the Eastern Conference, that could really give one of those two teams a test in the playoffs?
Yeah, Toronto is a team that's been together a long time. They've gone through some playoff battles together now, and they have the size. They have the potential to make a trade here at the deadline to where they could still give Cleveland a pretty good run. And I think Boston, if you look at the way, I think Boston is 13-3 in their last 16 games. I don't know that they'd create the same sort of matchup problems for the Cavaliers that Toronto would. But you'd have to certainly respect the way Boston has played lately, and if they can carry that over, then they'd be a threat as well. You'd still have to give the Cavaliers an overwhelming chance. And out west, I'm not sure anybody can really match up with the depth of star talent that the Warriors have. But you always have to keep an eye on the Spurs. That's a franchise that obviously knows what it's doing and could potentially knock off the Warriors. But again, you'd have Golden State as the major favorites.
Sean, we appreciate your time, my man. It's getting more and more difficult to make sense of the Knicks, and I think you kind of did some of that, so we appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me.